that I thought we had been bombed.
I thought an airplane had fallen on the building.
There's just people laying everywhere, you know, total destruction.
What happened here in the community of New London, Texas a half-century ago has largely been forgotten by the rest of the world. Bill Thompson still remembers.
I have had a lot of people in the years past say, well, I guess you don't remember much about it, you know, but I remember as much about it today as I did the day it happened.
Thompson was in the 6th grade at New London School. He had just traded seats that day with a classmate to sit next to his girlfriend. In the next room, Joe Watson was in the study hall reading a magazine. In another part of the school, Mildred Walker was working on a math lesson. Hundreds of other students were patiently waiting for the final school bell to ring. It was just after 3 o'clock. School would be dismissed in a matter of minutes. And in the basement-level shop class, teacher Lemmy Butler reached for an electrical switch to turn on a saw. There was a spark. People up to 12 miles away heard the explosion. But here at the epicenter, it was strangely quiet.
It just happened instantly, and everything went up and seemed like I was in a whirlwind, and then it all settled down, and that's the last I remember.
The spark had ignited a pocket of natural gas. In an instant, almost 300 children were killed.
My name's John Furr, and I'm in the 10th grade in London High School. And there were 150 of us in that class. I was in English room when this happened, and Miss Blizziella Thompson was teaching us, and we were studying the life of Edgar Allan Poe, and all of a sudden something went boom, and the roof fell in, and the back end of the building, our floor fell out, and the blackboard killed Miss Thompson, and there were about 22 in the room, and 5 of us got out.
I was buried under debris and the ceiling that had fell in on top of us, and I could hear people working when I came to, and I was trapped and I was squeezed, and I could only move one hand, and I feel in my head, and I could feel the blood and grime. I didn't know what it was. I thought I was having a nightmare. I kept pinching myself, trying to wake up, and I couldn't wake up. And I heard people digging and hollering, here's someone, let's get him.
It was the worst disaster involving children the world had ever known. Even Adolf Hitler sent his condolences. But not even a world of sympathy could soothe the grief of that spring day.
It just came down, knocked my head into a desk, broke my nose, and we dug ourselves out.
Many of the survivors of the New London school explosion now live in Houston. Buddy Watson was in the shop class.
There was 31 of us in there, including the teacher, and 5 of us got out alive. And we were the ones that were in the front of the shop.
The next thing I knew, I was on one of those big old tables in the reading room with all this concrete and mortar, and you couldn't breathe. I don't know who else was in the reading room.
I was in there.
You were in the reading room?
Mm-hmm. And the books, the wall just came in on top of us.
Those big desks what saved y'all. They just made a little lean-to for them, because the whole roof came in.
Marion and Mildred Walker lost a sister in the explosion.
She should have been in the study hall, but she was in the typing lab, and no one escaped from the typing lab.
Joe Etheridge was in the 10th grade. He lost a younger sister. Charles Dial lost a younger brother.
It was total devastation when I got there. There wasn't very many grown-ups around searching when I got there. The only way I identified him was he had been playing with this blue string that comes around, wrapped around slabs of bacon, and we'd been playing tops with spun tops. And at first I picked the wrong kid, and my grandpa walked over, or my daddy, and he told me, "Moko, who is this?" And I went over and I put my hands in his pocket, and they come out with that string. That's the only way I identified him.
The scene was chaotic. Hundreds of workers from the nearby oil fields rushed to the school, many of them parents picking through the rubble in search of their own children. Ralph Carr was one of the parents who saw the explosion.
Something I never had seen before. It looked like it went up a little, fell down. Everything went down. From then on, there's too much dust. I got to the building all right, got it in, and found my daughter, but I couldn't get to her. There's too much. So I came out, and I ran back to see my wife was standing there on the hill, and told her that our girl was gone.
He recognized her clothes, how he recognized her. You know, she was slumped over in her desk.
There were children sitting in the seats, and evidently it was a shock, just like that. They didn't know what happened.
I'll tell you, it was the worst disaster, I guess, that's ever happened.
Mothers were going up and down the highway trying to stop vehicles to see if they had seen their child. Was she alive or was he alive?
Molly Ward was a fourth grader sitting on a bus in front of the school.
The part that stands out in my mind so strong is the screaming and crying that was going on, that we could hear echoing from over here at the school for the next, that afternoon and during the night. It was just so tragic.
A lot of the parents almost lost their mind over it for years.
Some of them were,
you know,
pretty bad.
My father and my mother almost lost their mind. I mean, they couldn't get over it. They couldn't believe it, you know. Kids starting off to go to school, you know, laughing and joking and hopping and skipping and not coming home. They just couldn't believe it.
Nobody would have thought of this big building falling down. It was accumulated gas in the basement, they said. And it just looked like somebody lifted the lid off a kettle.
Into this twisted mass of steel mesh and concrete came New London's grim and heartbroken salvage crews.
One of the first wire service reporters to arrive in New London that day was a 20-year-old United Press reporter assigned to the Dallas office.
We saw this great pile of debris. That's all it was. You couldn't have identified it as a building. It looked like a pile of debris that might have been bulldozed together into that little area. And hundreds of men looking like ants digging into that rubble, taking stone by stone away, trying to reach, in many cases, their own children. As we got closer, we found that tears were smearing their dirty, rough-hewn faces as they were bloodied hands were picking up these pieces, piece by piece, and eventually finding a body and lifting it out.
Walter Cronkite would go on to cover many more stories, but the New London school explosion stands in his mind as the worst peacetime disaster he's ever covered. In the Pleasant Hill Cemetery, most of the tombstones read the same date, March 18, 1937, a day the rest of the world has forgotten. Not Bill Thompson.
I had exchanged seats. I had moved one seat forward and I traded seats that day because I wanted to sit behind the little girl that I call my girlfriend, you know. And by making that trade, my life was spared. And the girl that traded with me lost her life. She was sitting in the seat that I was supposed to be in. And then I carried a lot of remorse and a lot of guilt from that. I was 12 years old, and I carried a lot of guilt with me for a long time, and had wondered why, you know.
The explosion was blamed on a natural gas leak. To save money, the school had tapped into a pipeline carrying raw natural gas, which is odorless. No one knew the gas had leaked into a crawl space beneath the school. As a result of the explosion, laws were passed requiring gas suppliers to add that pungent odor we smell in gas today. A new, larger school was built on the same site, and with contributions from around the world, a 30-foot granite monument now stands in front of the school. It does not ease the pain of the day New London lost a generation.